The rain fell hard on the driveway as I stood there, shaking. My duffel bag sat at my feet, soaked through. Under my shirt, the scar from my surgery still ached, the one from 3 months ago when I gave my sister my kidney. Marissa stood in the doorway, her face twisted with anger. Her husband Tom leaned against the frame behind her, smirking like he always did. "You need to leave," Marissa said, her voice cold and sharp. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I had given her a part of my body. I had saved her life. Now she was throwing me out like garbage. "But Marissa, I'm still healing," I whispered. "Not my problem," she snapped. The neighbors were staring from their yards. My heart felt like it was breaking into pieces. I looked at my sister one last time, hoping she might change her mind. Instead, she slammed the door shut. I stood alone in the rain, trembling and lost. My name is Diana Hart, and this is the story of how I learned that love isn't always worth the price you pay for it. 3 months earlier, everything was different. Marissa had gotten sick, really sick. The doctors said she had renal failure, which meant her kidneys weren't working anymore. She was hooked up to machines that cleaned her blood 3 times a week. She looked pale and tired all the time. Mom called an emergency family meeting in the living room. "If only someone in the family could be a match," Mom said, tears streaming down her face. "Someone could save her life." I sat there listening, and something inside me just knew. I didn't even think about it twice. I raised my hand and said, "I'll get tested." Nobody expected me to volunteer. I was the quiet one, the one who always stayed in the background. But Marissa was my sister. Despite everything that had happened between us over the years, despite how she had treated me, I loved her. That same week, I went to the hospital for blood tests and genetic matching. When the doctor called me back, she smiled and said, "You're a perfect match." My heart soared. I felt chosen, like finally I had something important to give. I thought this surgery would change everything. I thought it would bring my sister and me closer together. Daniel, my boyfriend, wasn't happy about my decision. He came to my apartment that evening and said, "Diana, you can't do this. She's never been nice to you. She's never cared about your feelings." I got defensive immediately. "That's not true," I said, even though part of me knew he was right. "She's my sister. Family is supposed to mean something." Daniel sat down on my couch and looked at me seriously. "She's used you your whole life," he said. "And now you're going to let her literally take a part of you?" We argued back and forth. He begged me not to go through with it. When I refused to listen, he got angry. "If you do this, I don't know if we have a future together," he said. Those words hurt, but I was determined. My friends called too, saying similar things. "Diana, you're being naive," my best friend Sarah told me. "What if something goes wrong? What if you need 2 kidneys and you only have 1? But I had made up my mind. I believed that saving Marissa's life would finally make her love me. I believed that this sacrifice would heal everything broken between us. I was wrong. The day of the surgery came on a cold Tuesday morning in March. I lay in the hospital bed wearing the white gown, trying not to think about what was about to happen. Marissa came to see me before they wheeled me into the operating room. She looked scared and her hands were shaking. She reached out and held my hand tightly. "You're my hero," she whispered, tears running down her cheeks. It was the first time she had ever said something truly kind to me. It was the first time in years that I felt like she actually appreciated me. Those words made everything feel worth it. I squeezed her hand and said, "I'm doing this because I love you." They gave me medicine to make me sleep and everything went dark. When I woke up, I was in intense pain. My left side felt like it was on fire. But even through the pain, I was smiling. I had done it. I had saved her life. The surgery had been successful. After the surgery, I went to stay at Marissa's house to recover. She had promised I could use her guest room while I healed. For the first few days, she seemed grateful and kind. But then something changed. On the 4th day, I asked her to help me change my bandage because I couldn't reach it. She sighed loudly, like I had asked her to climb a mountain. "Can't you do it yourself?" she asked, irritated. I felt hurt, but I didn't say anything. The next day, I was hungry but too weak to cook. I asked her if she could make me some soup. She complained the entire time. "This is so inconvenient," she kept saying. "I'm supposed to be recovering too, you know." But she wasn't recovering anymore. She felt fine. One night, I went to the kitchen for water around midnight. I heard Marissa and Tom talking in the living room. I didn't mean to eavesdrop, but I couldn't help it. "She's milking this whole donor thing," Marissa said to Tom in a harsh whisper. My blood ran cold. I stood frozen in the hallway listening. "She's acting like she's the hero and I should worship her for it," Marissa continued. Tom laughed. I felt like someone had punched me in the chest. A week after I arrived at Marissa's house, she announced that she was throwing a party. To celebrate my new life, she told everyone on Facebook. To celebrate getting my health back. She invited dozens of people, friends, family, and coworkers. I thought maybe she would thank me at the party, maybe tell everyone what I had done. But then she told me, "You should probably stay in the guest room during the party. You'll just be a downer with all your bandages and complaining." I couldn't believe she said that. I was hurt, but I went upstairs and closed the door. I could hear music and laughter from below. I heard people asking, "So tell us, Marissa, how are you feeling?" And she would laugh and say, "Amazing. I'm so grateful for my new kidney. I'm going to live my best life now." She never mentioned me once. Not even to say thank you. I sat on the bed and cried. After a few hours I couldn't take it anymore. I went downstairs hoping maybe she would introduce me. Maybe tell people what I had sacrificed. When Marissa saw me, her face turned mean. "You're ruining the vibe," she said loudly in front of everyone. "Go back to bed." Everyone looked at me. I felt so embarrassed. I realized then that Marissa wasn't grateful. She was performing gratitude for other people, but she didn't actually feel it toward me. A few days later, Mom sent a message to our family group chat. "I'm so proud of Marissa for her strength and recovery journey," she wrote. "She's such an inspiration." The message had 40 thumbs-up reactions and tons of comments saying how amazing Marissa was. I sat there reading it over and over. No one mentioned me. Not Mom, not any of my aunts or uncles. No one acknowledged that I had given up part of my body for this recovery journey. I felt invisible. When I called Mom and mentioned it gently, she said, "Diana, you didn't need praise. You did the right thing. That should be enough for you." But it wasn't enough. I was still in pain. My body was still healing. I was still struggling with the fact that I would never have another kidney to give. And yet, nobody seemed to care about my sacrifice. Mom made it sound like I was selfish for even wanting recognition. "That's not the point, Mom," I tried to explain. "I just want people to understand what I did." She sighed heavily. "Diana, sometimes being good means doing things that nobody sees or praises. That's what real kindness is." I hung up the phone feeling even more alone than before. About 2 weeks after the party, I finally snapped. I couldn't take it anymore. I went into the living room where Marissa was sitting on the couch, watching television. Tom was out at work. "We need to talk," I said, my voice shaking. Marissa looked annoyed, but she paused her show. "I gave you part of my body," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "The least you could do is treat me with respect. You threw me out of your party. You told Mom I was causing problems. You complain every time I ask for help, even though I'm still healing." I thought maybe she would understand, maybe she would apologize. Instead, her face got red. "You think you're a saint," she screamed at me. "You did this for attention. You wanted everyone to feel sorry for you and worship you for being so noble and brave." I was shocked by her anger. I had never seen her so mean. "That's not true," I said quietly. "I did it because I love you." When Tom came home later that day, Marissa told him about our conversation, twisting everything I had said. Tom came into my room and said, "She's right. You're toxic. You're guilt-tripping her by reminding her what you did." That night, I started packing my bags without making a sound. The next morning, Marissa gave me an ultimatum. "You need to leave today," she said coldly. "I can't have this negativity in my house." I couldn't believe this was happening. I tried to explain that I was still healing, that I needed a few more weeks to recover before I could work again. But Marissa wouldn't listen. She called Mom and twisted the story. "Diana's unstable," she told her on the phone, loud enough for me to hear. "She's been making me feel guilty and acting crazy. I can't have her here anymore." Mom believed every word. By noon, I was standing outside in the rain with my duffel bag. My surgical bandage was bleeding through my shirt. I looked back at the house one last time, hoping Marissa might peek out from behind the curtains and change her mind. but the curtains stayed closed. I was alone on that driveway and I had never felt more broken. I checked into a cheap motel that night. The room smelled like old cigarettes and cleaning products. The bed was lumpy, and the walls were so thin I could hear people arguing in the next room. I lay there in the dark, unable to sleep. My phone buzzed with missed calls and text messages from the hospital, from my workplace, from people I didn't really care about. But there were no calls from my family. Not from Marissa, not from Mom, not from anyone who actually mattered to me. I pulled up my shirt and looked at the scar on my stomach. It was still red and angry, still tender to the touch. I thought about how my kidney was inside my sister's body right now, cleaning her blood, keeping her alive. And here I was, alone in a dingy motel room with nothing. I started crying then, really crying like I had never cried before. The scar hurt, but the emotional pain was so much worse. I lay there in the darkness and thought something I had never thought before. Maybe I gave too much. The next morning, I went to a small cafe to get coffee and think about what to do next. I was sitting at a corner table trying to figure out my life when a woman sat down across from me. Her name was Maya and she was a social worker. She had overheard part of my phone conversation with Sarah, where I was explaining what happened. "I'm sorry if I'm being nosy," Maya said. "But are you okay?" Something about her kind face made me open up. I told her the whole story about Marissa, about the kidney, about being thrown out. Maya listened without interrupting. When I finished, she reached across the table and held my hand. "You don't need your sister to validate that you're a good person," Maya said. "Your goodness comes from inside you, not from how people react to it." Those words hit me like a lightning bolt. I had been my whole life waiting for my family to tell me I was good enough, smart enough, worthy enough. But they never would. That didn't mean I wasn't those things. I just had to believe it about myself. Maya gave me her phone number and said, "Call me if you need anything." That day in the cafe, I felt something shift inside me. It was small, but it was real. It was the beginning of me learning to save myself. I found work again as a nurse's aide at a local hospital. It wasn't my old job, but it was something. My coworkers were kind and supportive. They could see the strength in me, even when I couldn't see it in myself. I started volunteering at the dialysis center in the evenings. I would sit with patients who were hooked up to the machines just like Marissa used to be, and I would talk to them. Some of them looked scared, just like my sister had looked scared. But these patients were grateful for my help. Every time I brought them water or held their hand, they said thank you. They meant it. These small moments of gratitude started to heal me. Each thank you felt like a bandage on my broken heart. I realized that my kindness wasn't wasted. It just hadn't been given to the right people. I was learning that sometimes you have to give your goodness to the world when your family can't appreciate it. A few months after I moved into my own small apartment, Mom called out of nowhere. "Marissa says you've been telling people that she abused you," Mom said, her voice accusatory. I took a deep breath. "I haven't told people anything," I said calmly. "I've just been honest about what happens when people ask." Mom sighed heavily. "You always make things so dramatic, Diana. You always blow everything out of proportion." That's when something clicked in my head. I had spent my whole life apologizing for my own hurt. I had been raised to believe that my pain wasn't real, that my feelings didn't matter. Mom had taught me to feel guilty for being sad. "I'm not making this dramatic," I said quietly but firmly. "This is my life. This is what happened to me." After that conversation, I realized something important. I couldn't spend the rest of my life waiting for my family to understand me or validate my pain. I had to move forward with or without them. One day at work, something incredible happened. A patient named Mrs. Rodriguez was dying. Her family had called hospice, and everyone knew it was the end. I sat with her, holding her hand, whispering kind words. Mrs. Rodriguez's daughter, Sophia, was sitting nearby, and she decided to record me comforting her mother. I didn't even know the phone was there. 2 weeks later, my manager called me into her office. "You went viral," she said, smiling. I had no idea what she was talking about. She showed me the video on her computer. It was me speaking softly to Mrs. Rodriguez, telling her that her life had mattered, that she had made a difference in the world. The video had millions of views. People called me the angel nurse. Comments flooded in. "This is true compassion. The world needs more people like her." My kindness, the same kindness that Marissa had mocked, had suddenly become powerful. A journalist reached out to me about doing an interview. She wanted to hear my story. I was nervous about sharing something so personal, but I agreed to do it. During the interview, she asked, "Tell me about your kidney donation. What made you do it?" I didn't mention Marissa by name. I just said, "I gave it to someone I loved. It taught me that love doesn't always return the way you give it. But that doesn't mean the giving was wrong." The interview clip got millions of views. People cried watching it. Comments poured in on social media. "You're the definition of grace. This woman is a hero. More people should be like her." I knew Marissa saw it. I wasn't trying to hurt her. I was just telling my truth. And my truth was powerful. One afternoon while I was at work, my phone buzzed with a text from Marissa. "Nice speech," it said. "Playing the victim suits you." I read it once, then twice. My first instinct was to feel hurt, to feel angry, to want to text back and defend myself. But I didn't. For the first time in my life, my sister's words didn't control me. I didn't need her approval, and I didn't need to prove anything to her. I put my phone down and went back to work. That night, I deleted her message without responding. That small act, not responding, felt like freedom. Because of the viral video and the interview, the hospital reached out to me with a proposal. They wanted to create a patient care foundation dedicated to helping families who were dealing with organ transplants. They wanted me to lead it. I would help people navigate the emotional and physical recovery process. I would share my story to help others feel less alone. I said yes immediately. Donations started pouring in. I was getting emails from people all over the country who had been touched by my story. Some were donors who felt unappreciated just like I had. Others were recipients who felt guilty about what had been given to them. I helped all of them. I started speaking at hospitals and universities about organ donation and the emotional side of giving. People wanted to hear my story. Not just my pain, but my perseverance and strength. One day, an old friend from town texted me. "Did you hear about Marissa?" the message said. I felt my stomach drop. I called her immediately. "What happened?" I asked. She told me that Marissa's husband Tom had been cheating on her. Apparently, he had been using Marissa's illness for sympathy, getting attention from people at work, telling sad stories about his sick wife. But now that Marissa was healthy again, Tom had left her for a younger woman. Marissa had lost her house in the divorce, and she had lost her job too because she couldn't handle the stress. I felt pity for her, not satisfaction. I had imagined this moment, imagined her finally suffering, but it didn't feel good the way I thought it would. A few weeks after hearing about Marissa's breakdown, she called me. She was sobbing so hard she could barely speak. "I lost everything," she said between cries. "Tom left me. I lost the house. I lost my job. I can't do this alone, Diana. I don't know how to survive without him." For a split second, I wanted to comfort her. I wanted to say, "Come stay with me. I'll help you." That was who I had always been, the one who sacrificed, the one who saved people. But then I remembered something. I remembered standing in the rain on her driveway, bleeding through my bandage while she closed the curtains. I remembered her saying I was ruining the vibe. I remembered her calling me unstable. I stayed silent on the phone. "Diana," Marissa asked, "are you there?" I didn't answer. She hung up. I felt sad for her, but I also felt like I was finally protecting myself. A major television network invited me to be on their show. They wanted to do a segment about forgiveness and healing. The host asked me, "Diana, would you ever forgive the person who betrayed you so deeply?" I thought about the question carefully. "Forgiveness isn't about letting someone back into your life," I said. "Forgiveness is about letting yourself move on. It's about not letting their actions define your future." The audience was silent for a moment, and then people started crying. That clip became one of the most shared videos of the year. It helped millions of people understand that you could forgive someone without having to let them hurt you again. A few months after the television interview, Mom showed up at my apartment without calling first. I opened the door and tried to smile, but I was nervous. "Can we talk?" she asked. I let her come inside. We sat on my couch and Mom started crying. "She's in bad shape," Mom said, meaning Marissa. "She's living with me now. She has nowhere else to go. Can't you just talk to her? Can't you try to help her?" I felt the old guilt creeping back in, but I pushed it down. I can help her find a good therapist, I said. I can help her get professional support. But I'm not going to pretend that what she did was okay. Mom looked disappointed. She had wanted me to just forget everything and take care of Marissa again. You've changed, Mom said quietly. Yes, I answered. Finally. A few months later, I got a message from a nurse I used to work with at the hospital. She told me that Marissa had been brought to the emergency room. She was having severe panic attacks and was completely exhausted, both physically and emotionally. She was suffering from depression and anxiety. I debated for hours about whether to visit her. Part of me wanted to just ignore it, to let her deal with her own pain. But I realized that wasn't who I wanted to be. I went to the hospital quietly, without telling anyone. I stood at the doorway to Marissa's room and looked at her in the hospital bed. She looked small and fragile, nothing like the angry woman who had thrown me out. I whispered, "I hope you heal," even though I knew she couldn't hear me. Then I turned and walked away. She never knew I was there, but I knew. That moment was for me, not for her. 6 months later, my foundation won a humanitarian award from the city. The mayor handed it to me in front of a crowd of hundreds of people. Cameras flashed everywhere. Everyone was clapping and cheering. The mayor said, "This award goes to Diana Hart for proving that compassion can change lives. She has helped thousands of people heal." As I stood on that stage with the award in my hands, something hit me like a lightning bolt. I realized that the person I had been desperately trying to win love from, my sister Marissa, had already lost everything trying to win the world's attention. But I had found peace. I had found purpose. I had found myself. A few weeks after the award ceremony, I received a letter in the mail. It was from Marissa. I held it in my hands for a long time before opening it. Inside she had written, "Diana, you were always the better one. I see that now. I'm sorry it took me losing everything to understand your worth. I hope someday you can forgive me." There was no apology, not really. Just regret. I folded the letter carefully and put it in a drawer. I didn't write back. Not out of spite, but out of closure. I had said everything I needed to say. Her letter didn't change anything for me. 3 years later, I was speaking at a charity event in front of hundreds of people. As I was walking toward the stage, I saw a familiar face in the crowd. It was Marissa. She looked older now, thinner. Her eyes were heavy with sadness. I smiled politely and kept walking. After my speech, as I was leaving the stage, Marissa approached me. She looked nervous and afraid. "Can we start over?" she whispered. I stopped and looked at her for a long moment. I thought about everything, the kidney, the rain, the driveway, all of it. Then I said, "You already had a part of me. You don't get the rest." I walked past her into the crowd, and she stood frozen, finally realizing what she had lost. I had learned that true power wasn't revenge. True power was peace.